Terrance. I'm going to be reading through and giving suggestions for your paper, Aerospace Engineering and Inquiry into the Past. Okay. How has aerospace engineering affected the world since the first satellite has been put into orbit? Since the first satellite in space, the lives of people around the world have been changed forever. If it be the way we see space or the ways in which we communicate with each other. This has all changed with aerospace engineering because of events like Sputnik being launched into space, causing a revolution in space discovery and communication between people. Aerospace engineering has changed our lives and the lives of those around us. Whether we acknowledge it or not, this field has changed the ways in which people live. Yeah, I agree. The event of Sputnik, the first satellite put into orbit, started the whole space race event, and this first event caused a larger unseen change in lives. Sputnik has led to the creation of weather satellites, communication satellites, and navigation satellites. Each of these satellites has have different uses, but stem from the same branch. By the same branch, you mean Sputnik? Or the same branch, you mean like the technology of satellites? Sputnik 1 was a small satellite created by the Soviet Union in 1957 whose primary purpose was to send signals from space back to Earth. Even though Sputnik was only in space for a short while, 3 months, it served as a starter for the space race between the Soviet Union and the United States. Following the creation of Sputnik, the U.S. would send their own satellite into orbit, Explorer 1, a year later on January 31st, 1958. Explorer 1 was created to measure the radiation above the U.S. Huh. I didn't know that. All these events occurred during the Cold War, which eventually became the space race. Okay, so I feel like your second and your third paragraph here went well. An introduction, though, looking back at that, introductions are I think the hardest things in the world to write. But let me look back at this. I think maybe you're just like repeating yourself. If you wanted the introduction to be that long, you could throw in like maybe a small example of a way that satellites impact our daily lives. But you could also cut that down and just not repeat yourself and have a really short introduction. That would also be totally fine for this paper. Okay. After these satellites had very little functions were sent into orbit, the creation of more useful satellites was started. The first of being a communication type of satellite named SCORE, standing for Signal Communication by Orbiting Relay Equipment. The satellite was created with an intention to broadcast a message by President Eisenhower. Well, the satellite was not a true communication satellite, it was the first of its kind, showing the world that there was a possibility for greater communication from satellites back to Earth and vice versa. Okay. One thing I'm wondering is, let me look at your works cited down here. Although you didn't directly quote anyone, this felt to me like it's kind of getting into the area of me needing to know where you got the information. With the stuff with Sputnik, I feel like that really is common knowledge, that's something like you really kind of would just expect anyone to be familiar with that fact a little, but as you get more specific, I bet you found that information somewhere. Just and you don't have to directly quote it. You can just stick it in at the end there, reference the source you got it from. AT&T. My grandpa works for AT&T in communication systems. And I'm pretty sure he was working there in 1962. Okay, AT&T's Telstar launched in 1962, which was, sorry, wait a minute, there was one other thing in that other paragraph. Sorry, back to that other paragraph at the top of page 2, the second sentence, the first of being a communication type of satellite. I think what you kind of meant to say is the first one of these was, or that would be a way to make it a new sentence that stands on its own. The way that you start with this first and being would mean we need to hook it up to the other sentence, and I think it would be stronger just to start your new sentence with The first of these was... Okay, sorry. The Telstar broadcasted the first live telecast. Opening the door... Yeah, I'm back to the second paragraph again. Opening the door for the communications revolution, launching voice, television, and data transfer between the U.S. and places in Europe. Okay, this is a very common issue that I run across in people's writing. When you start your sentence with an ing word like that, opening the door, it's easy to accidentally write a fragment, which I think you did. Let's see here. Opening the door, launching the stuff, but then you don't say what happened. Opening the door, she told him that he had ruined her life. Opening the door, launching voice and television data transfer was an important thing that happened. So you can fix that two ways. You can hook the opening the door sentence onto the Telstar broadcast the first live telecast part of the sentence. That's going to make your sentence real long, but it would work. Or if your sentence says, or you could start your sentence with saying something like, that development opened the door for the communications revolution. Okay. Later in 1962, NASA launched Relay 1, which was the first satellite that allowed for communication on a global scale, leading to satellites such as SYNCOM-3, a satellite used to broadcast the Olympic Games live in 1964. That's cool. But these satellites, due to their positioning, could only broadcast for short periods of time, but that would later change. I'll just point out so you can edit. You don't want to use but twice there, right? That's not the style that we like in English right now. Find a way to only use the word but once. It's like one of my favorite words, for real. This happened, but this happened, but I have to go through my writing and edit out all the places I said but because I like it so much. Okay, Intelsat 1, 2, and 3, launched between 1965 and 1967, worked together to create the first ever continuous satellite communications link. These satellites working in tandem created the basis for communication satellites. Satellites such as these led to the creation of satellite cable, allowing for homes to watch live events from the comfort of their homes. Oh, there's another homes part. And that needs revising. Again, I'm going to say I'd like to see here a reference to where you got this information. I know we're kind of like walking a fine line here, because if we say you don't have to cite things that are common knowledge, and this stuff is probably common knowledge within aerospace engineers. I think I used the right word for that. But for my purposes, and just in general, like, it doesn't hurt to say where you got your info. So I see there is another quote down here. Okay. The Soviet Union, need to capitalize S there, in 1965 launched Millennia 1, which allowed for the live broadcast of the Red Square Parade throughout the country. Following in the footsteps of the Soviet Union's creation, Canada? Wow, Canada jumps in. Okay. Canada launches Anik 1, allowing for the live broadcast throughout homes in North America. I had no idea Canada got in on this so early. Okay. In 1976, Marsat became the first communication system to provide mobile services, as stated by Encyclopedia.com. After the launch and success of Marsat, hundreds of low Earth orbit satellites were launched by different companies with the intention to replace Marsat's success, creating a boom in advancement of television. Same issue. Your use of words is lovely. You have nice complex sentences, but here's another spot where your sentence starts with an ing, and then it doesn't complete the thought. So you can hook it onto the other one. You have a lot of long sentences, though. So what I would recommend is having that last sentence be something like, this created a boom in advancement of blah, 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 blah. Like I said, that ing word thing is super common, and it's so super common that probably it'll just become an accepted thing in the future, but not quite yet. While the invention of communications satellites was happening, weather satellites were also being invented. The first weather satellite to make it into orbit was What is a weather satellite, actually? I'd like to hear that at this point. Was Vanguard 2 in 1959, created by the U.S. Well, this is the first weather-based satellite put in orbit. Quote, the data was poor because of an unsatisfactory orientation of the spin axis, as stated by data. Following this successful launch but poor data satellite, the launch of Terrance 1 was set in 1960, considered to be the first successful. It was considered to be the first true successful weather satellite. 10 such Terras were launched by 1965, showcasing how successful these satellites were. See there, you have your ing part, you're showcasing, and it is hooked up to the rest of the sentence. That's the way to do it. And here's another way to do it. Using these 10 Terras combined allowed for the first global weather view. So you start with the ing word using these Terras, whatever they are, but you finish your thought. Allowed for the first blah, blah, blah. Okay. Between 1964 and 1978, NOAA revolutionized weather forecasting, allowing for consistent weather forecasting, also creating what is now known as GPS technology. Ooh, this was started by the use of microwave imagery. Oh, closely resembling a radar. A radar? I thought it was just radar, but I don't know. This technology was used in weather forecasting to track cyclones and hurricanes. Aerospace engineering has a major impact on the world. Since the first satellite was put in orbit, people have been open to the creation of satellite televisions, cellular services, and accurate weather forecasts. These are just a few of the effects aerospace engineering has had on the world. You used effect with an A, and you want effect with an E. That's another small, super annoying thing. You affect something. That's the A, and you have an effect. Effect is the thing, and affect is the doing. So annoying. Okay, so you definitely have some strong writing here. The main thing I think we want to make sure you understand going forward is that, like I said, anytime you get information from a source, you want to go ahead and say this is where it came from. You want to mention the source. You don't have to directly quote it. And you only want to directly quote it. You only want to use the author's exact words when, like, the exact words are really great. When the exact words are particularly powerful, and when there's something special about them. In a lot of scientific writing, you wouldn't be doing many direct quotes, just because scientific writing is not about. That's not the main thing it's about, right? Is these exact right words for this concept. I mean, that will happen sometimes, but it's not like you're writing about, a president's speech or something, and then you definitely would need to do a lot of exact quoting because you're talking a lot about those exact words. So yeah, indirect quotes, just telling us the source after you get finished discussing the information. Direct quotes, only when the words in the original are like especially good ones. So I hope that's helpful.